Hey everybody, I'm Two-Tone.
And I'm Mitch the Peach.
Welcome back to the Hills Are Silent podcast, where we chop it up about the games of yesterday, today, and tomorrow. Let's get into it. What's going on, Mitch?
Man, just getting back from the holidays, seeing the family. Couldn't game as much as I wanted to there, but it was a short trip, so wasn't away from my consoles for long.
Okay, were you there just for the weekend?
Yeah, I just went down for Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, and then left the day after Christmas Day. So pretty short trip. But before that, I was playing a game called Soulcalibur VI, which I really started craving a fighter once we were watching all of those game trailers for Street Fighter and Tekken and whatnot. So I was like, hey, I've got Soulcalibur VI. I'm going to boot that up. And I'm glad I did, because I'm having a lot of fun with it. I've been playing the mode that they call Soul Chronicle. It's one of their two story modes that they have.
Okay.
They have a lot more content in this than I thought originally. This mode, Soul Chronicle, is more of like the nostalgia mode for me. It's basically there's one main story, but then you're also doing stories of each individual character within the Soulcalibur series, and then they all tie together and revolve around, the Soul Edge, which is the main weapon within the Soulcalibur series that everybody wants the power from. So basically, you get to play as every character within the series, which is awesome because, as a kid growing up, I don't know if you remember InPlay. In Peoria, it used to be that multi-level arcade that we had.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Short-lived. It did not make much of a profit, but when it did exist, I would always go and play that Soulcalibur cabinet that they had there.
Yeah, just to give our listeners a little history. So in Peoria, Illinois, they opened a massive arcade. As Mitch was saying, it's multi-stories. I mean, the place was huge. It was so epic. It was also extremely expensive. And I don't blame them. I'm sure the operation costs were really high to keep a place like that running. And it was downtown Peoria too, right? Wasn't that where it was located?
It was on the riverfront.
Yeah, so
maybe a block up.
Yeah, prime location. I'm sure it was not cheap to rent there. And it only lasted, 2 years. Do you know?
I'd say 2 years, because I remember we would get to go there if we got no detentions or demerits in middle school. They would let us go there. So I think we only did it for 2 years.
Yeah, man, that's so funny you brought that up. I've not thought about that place in years.
Yeah, kind of to add on what you said, every time as the years would go by or months would go by, more and more of the machines were broken and nobody was repairing them. So you could just tell that they were going downhill quick.
Yeah, and I was an arcade technician for a while, and it is really hard to keep an arcade up and running and functional. And those machines, they just take so much of a beating. They're always breaking down. So it's a lot of work to maintain an arcade. And I was an arcade technician at Dave & Buster's.
Oh, wow.
And I looked around one day and I asked our manager, I was like, how come we don't have any pinball machines? We're an arcade and pinballs are like a staple of arcades. He turned to me and was like, out of all the machines, pinball machines break down the most because it's just literally you have a ball that is just bashing along the sides of the machines. He's like, they take so much wear and tear. They're just too much of a hassle, so we don't even mess with them.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, honestly, now that you put it that way.
Yeah. Soulcalibur VI, I have not played this one. I think I played the first one, I think on Dreamcast. And I played the one that was released on GameCube, PlayStation 2, and original Xbox, which I think was the second one.
That was 4.
4?
Actually, I believe it was 4.
Okay.
Because I remember the guy saying over the Soulcalibur guy, Soulcalibur 4, but
Yeah.
maybe I'm wrong.
Really? I'm gonna look it up. I'm curious now.
Yeah, I am too. I do remember though, because that was my other memory of Soulcalibur, playing on GameCube as Link and Yoda.
Yeah, I always misspell Soulcalibur. I always think it's two words, and I always think it's spelled with an E instead of a U.
I'm looking at my notes page right now, and I spaced it out, Soul and Caliber.
Yeah, let's see here. Soulcalibur. All right, Soulcalibur 2 came out on PlayStation 2, Xbox, and GameCube. And
Maybe it was 2.
What did 3 also came out on PlayStation 2. That's weird that 3 only came out on PlayStation 2, whereas Soulcalibur 2 was multi-platform. Huh.
And what was 4?
4 was PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360.
Okay, so it was 2.
Yeah. It's cool that you're telling me Soulcalibur 6 has a story mode, because a lot of fighting games are just direct ports from their arcade versions, and oftentimes that means there's no story mode. It's just like an arcade mode or a versus mode, and that's it. Virtua Fighter comes to mind when I think of that, and probably a lot of the older ones. I think more so now, a lot of the fighters that are released, since they're already planned on being console releases as well, they do add story modes. And I think, to me, that adds a lot of value, because I don't want to buy like $50, $60, $70 game and it's just an arcade mode or versus mode.
Yeah, I think that's why I'm sticking with it right now. I'm playing it because I want to finish this story mode, and then they actually have another story mode, which is different, which is called Libra of Souls. And this one, you actually create your own fighter, and you basically play against the other fighters around the world, but they put a little story together around your created character.
Oh, that's sweet.
So, yeah, a couple things to play. I think I might run through both of them because I'm enjoying what I'm playing so far.
Yeah, and I love... So it's got a create a character mode?
It does.
Dude, that is awesome. I love when fighters have create a character modes.
I do.
I remember on Nintendo 64, WCW, NWO Revenge, WrestleMania 2000, WWF No Mercy. I think all of those had create a fighter modes. Maybe Revenge didn't, but I know the WWF games did. That was so fun to create a wrestler and then just go through the game as your creative
My mind
wrestler.
went to exactly that too when you started talking, because I did the same thing when I was a kid all the time. I want to say there's like the NWO one. I don't know, WCW NWO, one of those games. I remember fondly making a ton of characters, and they would always just show up randomly, even when I wasn't playing as them, and I always got so excited.
Yeah, creative characters on fighting games, man, it's so awesome. Well, that's cool.
And I'm not good at fighters by any means. I'm just button mashing for the most part and really trying to do combos that never really work out, but I still have a great time.
Yeah, it's same here. There's people that are really talented at fighting games, like competition level, and man, it's a lot of practice and a lot of work to get that good. All right,
Definitely.
What else you been playing?
Yeah, one other game I've been playing is called As Dusk Falls. I really wanted to give this one a shout out. We'll try not to go too much on it, but want to highlight a few things from them. Developer is Interior Night, and this is their debut game. Essentially, the story of this one is it's a multi-generational story about two families whose trajectories collide in the Arizona desert in 1998. And I was a little apprehensive at first. I didn't know if I was gonna like it because the graphics, or I guess the animation, is what they call motion comic artwork.
Yeah, I'm watching the video now, and yeah, the art style is very strange.
Yeah, and when I first started playing, I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to if I'm gonna enjoy this, just because it is very different. But as I went along with it and realized the voice acting was incredible, and I think I just started to actually enjoy these strange cutscenes as I played through it, and the story is just excellent. I'm usually also hesitant with these games because the Dark Pictures games that I've talked about earlier, the writing is never excellent. But with this one, the writing was superb. The story was great. I was gripped to it the whole time. I beat it within 2 sittings. It's not a terribly long game. I want to say I probably beat it in 4 to 6 hours, maybe. I don't know. It wasn't too long.
Okay.
But very good game. I highly recommend it. Another one of those Game Pass ones that I was like, all right, I'll boot it up because it's on Game Pass, and I'm glad I did because it was a lot of fun.
Nice.
Yeah, but that's all I've been playing. Looking forward to sharing some more for our next podcast. But what have you been up to? What are you playing?
Oh, man. So I talked about The Order 1886 on PlayStation 4 in a previous podcast episode. It's not that long of a game, but I've just been playing it in short bursts, and I finally finished it the other night, and I stand by what I was saying when I first started playing this game. It is great. I don't know what all the bad reviews were about. I really enjoyed this game. The writing was on point, voice acting was on point, just the production value is so high in this game. The way they recreated, oh my God, I don't even remember. I guess it's England. I don't know. 1886 England, I think.
Sure.
The way they recreated all the buildings and like the Victorian era is so cool. The monsters are cool. I just kept wanting to stop and look around while going through the levels because everything is extremely detailed. Graphics hold up. They were phenomenal when the game was first released, and they still look like they could come out on the newest generation of consoles, PS5, Xbox Series X, and you wouldn't even notice a difference. You'd still think that they look amazing. It's a short game, probably took me 6 or 7 hours to beat, but to me that's a sweet spot, especially for like a linear, story-driven third-person shooter. The only thing is, and this is to no fault of the developers or the studio that made this game, but it ends kind of open-endedly. So I think that they were setting it up for a sequel that obviously never happened because the game, I guess, didn't reach the level of success it needed to warrant a sequel.
Sure.
So it's kind of like, man, you're never going to get that closure or that follow-up story that you really want. But honestly, I'd rather be left wanting more than to be disappointed in some rush job to wrap everything up to try to make it make sense.
Right. Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, so that's what I beat recently, and the other thing I've been playing is Control Ultimate Edition. You and
I've been
I
anxiously awaiting your thoughts on this one.
Yeah, man, because I know you've played this as well. So on a previous podcast episode, when we were talking about Black Friday deals, I think we brought up that you could buy Control Ultimate Edition, which comes with all the DLC and stuff, for like $15. That was the Black Friday deal at a lot of places. I went to Best Buy to get my copy for PlayStation 4, and it's made by Remedy Entertainment, who I most fondly know them as the developers behind the Max Payne series. I loved Max Payne 1. Max Payne 2 was still a good game, but I don't think it was as good as the first one. And I think they also did Alan Wake, which I played through that when that first came out back on Xbox 360. And that game was good. I'm not going to say Alan Wake was amazing, but it was a good game and it had a good story. And I
played through that one as well, and I enjoyed it. I think you summarized it well. It was an okay game.
Yeah. And after, I don't know what all they made after Alan Wake. I know they made Quantum Break, which I never played. Did you ever play that one?
I never played it. I know it's got the star of it is Sean Ashmore, which I'm a big fan of his. He's actually in one of the Dark Pictures games as well.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, but I never played it. But from what I've heard, it's very similar style to Control.
That's what I've heard as well. So I started playing this game. It's okay. So the setting is interesting. The level design, I both love and hate the level design at the same time. Because it's got this cool aesthetic where it almost seems like the game takes place. It's hard. I don't think they ever say what year it is, but it has like a 1950s style technology vibe to it. You're in this place that's kind of like a paranormal version of the FBI headquarters, and everything around you just gives off 1950s vibes, and it's cool. They did a really good job building this interesting environment, I guess to say. But at the same time, as far as what I've played, everything takes place in this FBI headquarters. And the level design is very abstract. And I guess they kind of intentionally did that because the story sets it up as this being like this ever-changing, infinite building that's kind of trapped between dimensions. But at the same time, it's just, I don't know, it's almost like a Metroidvania style game where you're visiting different wings of this building, and you may not have access to a door over here until later on in the game you come back to that area. So it's a lot of going back and forth and revisiting areas. And it is a little weird to navigate. I don't think the map system is very great considering how abstract the building is and the level design is. It's good progression. I like the way you upgrade your powers and your weapons. Although the weapon design, even though it's nice punchy, and the guns are nice and punchy, the combat is fluid, the actual design of the guns I'm not really into. And the enemy design I'm not really into. So far it's a lot of fighting the same looking enemies, and there's just not enough distinct features. They're just kind of like a very generic enemy to me.
Sure.
But it's fun. I'm not going to say it's not a fun game. It's just, and also the game kind of is on the borderline of being a horror game. It does have some kind of creepiness to it and a lot of sci-fi mystery. But I just wish the enemies would have been cooler looking or maybe freakier looking to kind of push it over the edge to that, okay, I'm actually kind of scared while playing this.
Right.
Because even the music's tense. The music is kind of giving it the atmosphere as if it's a horror game, but it's just not quite over the threshold of a scary game. It's just like an action game it didn't want to go all the way to pure horror.
And honestly, I feel like that is kind of what Alan Wake was, though. Alan Wake never really crossed that threshold of being a scary game. It became more action-y than anything.
Yes, and even with Alan Wake, that one was more blatantly marketed as a horror game. And same thing with Alan Wake, the enemies, they were kind of meh. I was really in Alan Wake for the story. The combat was okay, and then the enemy design, they didn't thrill me when an enemy came on screen. So anyway, I'm sure you're probably farther than me in this game, and there could be a lot more that I haven't seen yet and a lot more to look forward to. Have you finished this game, or about how far along would you say you are in it?
No, I probably made about a third of the way through the game. Okay. It's been a while since I picked it back up, so that's why I also got it during that Black Friday sale, so I could play all the DLC as well. Have you made it to any of like what they deem a boss battle? Yeah,
I've fought in a couple of enemies that
they're also not super. I guess they're very bland. They're not super. They don't stand out as boss fights. So I totally get what you're saying there. I don't think, as far as everything I've got to at this point, there's nothing that I don't think you're missing out on much yet anyway. But maybe there's more that I haven't got to either.
Yeah, it's just my thing is this game when it came out got such high reviews. So maybe my expectations were just way too high going into it. But yeah, I guess I'm not seeing what everybody else is seeing with this game. It's good, but I'm in no rush to beat it, and it's not like I'm dying to get back to playing it.
Right. And I was actually going to mention that, though, because I was listening to a lot of Game of the Year podcasts during that time, and I remember firmly that Control was always in everyone's top 10 of the year, and I'm like,
Yeah.
it must be a must play. But yeah, I mean, I got a third of the way through and I never went back to it, but not because I thought it was just because I was playing on PC, and I always feel like I'm not good at finishing games on PC as opposed to sitting on the couch.
Okay, interesting. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'll dive back in, but I think I'm going to shift over to playing something else instead of wrapping this one up. Let's see what else we have on the agenda. But speaking of picking up games, and speaking of Ultimate Editions, which as a game collector, I'm always after that. Like, give me the Ultimate Edition. Give me the Game of the Year Edition. I want all the DLC. Like, don't piecemeal out the stuff to me. Just let me buy the whole package when it's all been released is one nice edition. And an issue I constantly run into, especially with the newer consoles, is you buy the Game of the Year Edition. Oh, dude. Resident Evil Village Gold Edition pulled this, and it pissed me off so bad. So the Gold Edition of Resident Evil Village is just the base game with a download code voucher for the DLC. So you don't actually get all the DLC on the disc. And the issue I have with that is, for one, a lot of these vouchers have expiration dates. And even though I've redeemed vouchers beyond their expiration date, it basically is the company saying, we do not guarantee that you'll be able to redeem this after this point. And another thing is servers go down. Support gets shut down for older consoles. Like, I would rather just be able to have the definitive version of a game forever in my collection.
Well, it's also tricky when you buy one of those definitive editions or gold editions used, thinking that it's just all going to be on the disc. But hey, the person that got it before you knew they redeemed the code.
Yes, exactly. And as somebody who does buy a lot of used games, that is another great point. I bought what the heck was that game? Nier Automata game.
There's Nier Replica, and then there's Nier Automata. It's probably Automata. That was the most.
Yeah, I think it was Nier Automata, and it was the Game of the Year edition, and I bought it used. The voucher that had all the DLC. Person who owned it before me already redeemed it, so I might as well just bought in the base game. Like, anyway, so
funny. I was just talking about that game with somebody yesterday, so it's very random that you brought it up.
Oh, really? Yeah. Don't buy the Game of the Year edition used, because you're not going to get all the DLC. So the reason I bring this up is because the latest game I picked up is Middle-earth Shadow of War Definitive Edition. So, of course, like I said, I want the Definitive Edition that has all the DLC. But this game is a weird case. There are actually 2 versions of the Definitive Edition of this game. There is one that just has the base game and a voucher. But they also released a 2-disc version that has all the DLC on disc. What?
We're still doing multiple discs in this day and age?
Yeah, well, my thing is that I had to specifically seek out this dual disc version so I wouldn't accidentally buy the one that just has the voucher. But I just find it odd. Like, either do... First of all, you shouldn't be doing a voucher one at all. Put everything on a disc, even if you have to put it on 2 discs. But second of all, why do both? Why make 2 different prints of it?
There's too many versions of games to begin with, and that just adds another layer of confusion that is just not needed.
Yeah. But anyway, done with my rant. Another thing I wanted to talk about is I got this wonderful Resident Evil shirt for Christmas. This one, well, at the time this shirt was originally produced, was commemorating the 20th anniversary of the first game. And this has all the different enemies from the original Resident Evil game. And in case anybody wants to know, this is like not a sponsorship or anything, but there is this site called nerdkungfu.com, and they sell licensed Resident Evil shirts. So it's not something where Capcom is just, it's not like bootleg stuff where Capcom's not involved at all. These are officially licensed shirts. And Mitch, I'm gonna send you the link so you can look at this as I'm going through it.
I want to take a peek.
All right.
It's licensed gear, so it's not like the one where you buy it and you wash it one time and the entire graphic's gone.
Yeah, exactly. And I'll say, I mean, the quality's pretty good on the shirt. It's not.
It looks good.
Not going to blow your mind or anything, but I haven't washed it yet, so we'll see if it goes away. But anyway, check out that link. That is the list of all the Resident Evil shirts. So there was a bunch of cool ones to choose from, spanning everywhere from Resident Evil 2 all the way up to Resident Evil 7, I believe. They got Resident Evil 4 shirts, Resident Evil 3 shirts.
It looks like there's more than just Resident Evil 2, which is... They have a whole video game genre.
Yeah, so this is probably a good place to just get video game shirts in general. But man, yeah, there's some really cool ones, especially this one, this Resident Evil 2 one with the liquor on it. That one's cool.
That is cool.
Yeah, there's one with Jill Valentine and Chris Redfield. One with the Resident Evil 2 logo, which I've always loved. Out of all the Resident Evils, that's my favorite game artwork cover. So yeah, man, just some cool stuff. Just figured I'd share it in case anybody else was wondering where you can get Resident Evil shirts that are of good quality and licensed. Oh, this one's cool. It's got the first zombie you come across in Resident Evil 1. So I'll definitely be picking up more shirts from here.
Yeah, me too. From the looks of it, I'm liking what I'm seeing too.
Yeah, cool.
I need more gamer apparel, as I was telling you before we started here. So this is perfect.
Yeah. All right, so I've been playing a lot of PlayStation 4, and I also have a PlayStation Vita, which I love. It's the coolest handheld console. And one of the lesser promoted features of the PlayStation Vita is remote play from your PlayStation 4 console. So that means I hook my PlayStation 4 up to my Wi-Fi. I connect to my Wi-Fi with my PlayStation Vita, and I can connect to it anywhere in the house and stream my game directly to my PlayStation Vita. So this comes in handy when my fiance is, when we're laying down, going to bed, she wants to watch something on the TV. Even though I can play handheld games on my Vita, I'm much more in the mood to play a full-scale PlayStation 4 game. So I can just pick up my Vita, actually turn on the PlayStation 4 from the Vita, go through the whole main menu. It streams everything to my screen on my Vita, and I can play whatever game I want. As far as I know, every single PlayStation 4 game is compatible with remote play on the Vita. Even stuff that's still coming out, despite the fact that Sony has officially discontinued support on the PlayStation Vita. And there is a little bit of compromise. The Vita only has 2 LNR trigger buttons, and the thumbsticks you're not able to click in, which means you're not getting the L3 and the R3 buttons. But you do get these buttons, you just have to handle it a little differently. So the Vita has a touchpad on the back of it, so you can assign the additional triggers back there, and to actually do L3 and R3, in other words, clicking in the thumbsticks, you just touch on the screen. So you take your finger off the thumbstick and then just click the corner of the touch screen, and it acts as those. So I wouldn't play like Call of Duty competitive multiplayer on it because you're going to get your butt kicked. It's not the same as a PlayStation 4 controller. But if you're just chilling, playing a more casual game, playing a single player game on a lower difficulty, totally is doable, and it looks amazing on that.
Every time we talk about the Vita, it makes you bring up the point again that it was just ahead of its time. It really was.
Yeah. Because that remote play, I mean, every company is trying to do that. And whether it be being able to play games via the cloud on your on your phone or in your tablet or something, or another computer or a television. That is something that's pretty hot right now, and it is an incredible technology to be able to do that, because you have your PlayStation 4 or your PC downstairs as the workhorse actually doing all the processing, and then that is just being streamed to whatever you're using. Now, I think that cloud gaming, there's a lot of latency and lag involved there, but when you're connecting to a device in your own personal network, in your house, your own Wi-Fi, like I'm not connecting to some server that's hundreds of miles away that's doing all the processing. I'm just connecting to my computer in the other room or something. Right. The latency is much lower from my experience in the remote play stuff I've tried. So talking to you about this, I think you told me you picked up a Steam Link. And do you want to let everybody know what that even is in case they haven't heard of it, and a little bit of background on that?
Yeah, no, it was good of you to connect all this together. But yeah, Steam Link is a little device that essentially does what you were kind of explaining. It lets your computer be the workhorse, and you can stream your Steam library from this little dock that's connected to your TV. So my homework was to try and dig out this little device that I picked up. I think it's important to note the price that I got this Steam Link for. So there was a huge sale on these Steam Links because they're now no longer in production, and I got mine when they were basically giving those away like candy. I got mine for about $5, I think, and that's about as low as they went.
Yeah, and I think when they first came out, they were like, what, $100, $150, something around
so
there?
I checked out the cost. It was $50 just for the Steam Link, but you could get a bundle with the Steam controller, which also doesn't exist anymore, for $90.
Okay.
And then it looks like you could have got the Steam Link for as low as $5, and then the bundle with the controller for as low as $35 when they were trying to give everything away.
Yeah, they were just trying to get rid of excess stock.
Exactly.
Man, and I remember that sale, and I regret not picking that up. That was such a good deal. Even if at the time I'm like, this is cool, and it's only $5, but I'll probably never use it. And in hindsight, I wish I had one of these upstairs in my bedroom, because my gaming PC is down in my basement.
Right. I figured $5, why not? I may not ever use it, which I think this is the first time I've really pulled it out and used it. So, like I said, my homework was to dig it out. I found it in one of my bags. I was worried because I moved in between buying this thing, and I found it. And I hooked it up to my TV, and it had a lot of updates. I think it had like 38 updates it had to go through.
Whoa.
Because I just said I'd never used it since I opened it the first time I got it. So it had a ton of updates. But I'm pleased to say that it still works great.
That's awesome.
It has the one thing that stood out that we saw was the trouble with using the Steam Link app, which is the replacement for that now that you use your phone for. This has Bluetooth capability. So I was able to use my Xbox controller connected via Bluetooth to the Steam Link itself, and it worked flawlessly. It picked it up quickly.
Nice. And yeah,
had zero issues.
To the people who don't know about this box, it's this tiny little set-top box that you would plug into your TV via HDMI. And I believe you can either connect directly through Ethernet or Wi-Fi. Does it have Wi-Fi as well?
It has Wi-Fi as well.
And then on the device, it has 2 USB ports if you want to plug in a USB controller, or as Mitch was saying, it has Bluetooth. So this, basically, all your processing is done in your gaming PC in the other room, and this is something you would plug into a television in a separate room just to be able to access your gaming PC and play your games from a different location in the house. All right, so you got it set up, you went through all the updates, you got your controller set up to it, and so you're saying it still works even though it's no longer supported?
It still works. I looked at the library, and it was the same thing as when we were demoing the version on the phone, but it's only a limited library of Steam games, though. It's not every single Steam game you have. So for some reason there are some Steam games where it just isn't compatible with any of their Steam Link versions. But I booted up Hades because I wanted to see what how a fast-paced dungeon crawler roguelite would work with this. And I plugged it via wired instead of wireless. I know I'd have the best latency, the best, the least amount of input lag if I was doing it that way. And I tried it, and honestly, a game like Hades is probably not designed for the Steam Link.
Really? It was that much latency?
It was enough that it was throwing me off.
Whoa.
And I wasn't able to play as well as I was when I was just playing on Steam.
That is interesting. Because, yeah, I mean, like a quick reactive platformer like that would be the perfect test. Wow, so there was enough lag to where you noticed it.
Yes.
Man, that sucks.
Yeah, I'm going to try out a couple other games just to see, again, if maybe it was just, I don't know, maybe it was just that time that I loaded it up or not or whatnot, but...
Wait, did you say you were connected to the Wi-Fi, or you actually plugged the Ethernet in?
I started with Wi-Fi, and then I thought about it, and I was like, I think wired should be the way to go. That would give me the best results, and when I was playing Hades, I was on wired.
And did you notice a difference between the Wi-Fi and the wired?
I didn't really notice a difference, to be honest with you.
Interesting.
I mean, my wireless is right next to where I was playing, so...
Yeah.
But still, I mean, there wasn't any difference to me.
Yeah, that is disappointing. So, yeah, because if you would have came on this podcast episode and told me there was little to no latency, I probably would have picked one of these up. But unfortunately, they're not as cheap anymore. When they were on clearance, as you mentioned, Steam was selling them for next to nothing, practically giving them away. But now, just doing a quick look on eBay, I mean, you're probably... Well, here's an untested one for $10 plus $12 to ship, which is not bad, but...
Not terrible.
For just the box, no cords, $40. With the box with the cable, $50. So you're probably going to spend around $50 for it if you were wanting to pick one up as of today.
I think in the limited library that I had, because I looked at all the games that I could play on it, and it wasn't appealing as far as, like, there's not a lot of games that I really want to play on this thing. Like, I have a huge library, and I think maybe a third of it was available to play on that Steam Link.
Well,
so I think that was in their downfall.
Yeah, now knowing all that, I kind of see why it didn't take off more. But yeah, as you mentioned, Valve has discontinued this and since replaced it with just an app. And you can download this app on Android phones, Apple phones, tablets, Windows PCs, Linux PCs. So you just connect to this app from whatever, instead of having a standalone dedicated device, it's now instead up to you to already have a device of some form or fashion that can run this app, and then you can do the same thing. You can stream your Steam library to whatever device you're using. So you and I tested this the other day on our phones. You have an iPhone, right?
I do.
Okay, so you tested it on an iPhone. I tested it on an Android phone. And it did work, and it was pretty cool. The only caveat being I don't have a controller to plug my phone into, so I had to use touch controls. And it does have very robust, customizable touch controls. So you can set it up however you want, but at the end of the day, touch controls on a phone while using that to try to play a PC game that's not built for it is not the ideal situation. But if you have one of those Bluetooth controllers or something that you can connect to your phone or tablet, that would be much better. Or if you're playing it on your computer and a different computer in another room, connecting a controller would be the ideal situation. So, Mitch, when you tested it, what game did you try to play?
I was playing a game called Tricky Towers, which is like almost like a Tetris type game.
Okay.
So it wasn't anything that like really demanded to have, like, unlike Hades, it didn't really have a lot of demand as far as input lag and whatnot.
Yeah, I tested out Blazing Chrome, which is a 2D side scroller game. It's a modern game, but it's built to be kind of like a retro style shooter, like maybe Contra or something.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't notice really any latency, but I wasn't super paying attention to that. But before I even got the game to play, after I'd installed the app, as soon as I hit play on my phone to start the game, my computer got the blue screen of death and restart. So right off the bat, it was not making a good first impression because it blue screened my computer just trying to launch the game from my phone. But once everything came back up, I tried it again and it worked flawlessly. So not sure what happened there, but it's kind of a weird not a good first impression.
Yeah, a little odd. I was doing subreddit searching while you were rebooting the computer, and it seemed like that was an issue that was happening with multiple people. So, not sure what the issue is, but it seems to be kind of fairly common.
Dang.
But I think going back to the Steam Link box itself, the physical Steam Link, it was the same thing of when booting it up, it went into that big picture mode and it booted on your screen. But a cool thing with that was, and I was talking to my little cousin about this, he would just use it to watch stuff that he wanted to put on his TV, but stream it from his computer. So he was like watching like a soccer stream from his computer, because it just mirrors whatever's on your computer and puts it on the TV.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have to be what's on Steam.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah, because I was messing around, I was looking at it, and I was like, oh, there's my Discord when I was going back and forth with things. And so, I mean, worst case, it could be, a box used to stream whatever TV show, movie that you want to watch that you can't necessarily stream from your TV.
Yeah. And there's other similar devices. I think the NVIDIA Shield is something similar.
Yes.
Like for a high-powered streaming device. All right. Well,
yeah, I think there are better options now, but for $5, I mean, it didn't break the bank for me at the time. I may give it another try and see and report back if I have any better results.
Yeah, I would like to see or hear your opinion on it after you try it one more time. What's the final verdict? Would it become something that you would use, especially if you've got a big house and multiple bedrooms or whatever, or is it something that you're just going to put away in the shelf or never use again?
I almost put it away immediately after trying Hades, but I kept it plugged in because I told myself I'm going to give it one more try.
Okay, yeah, let me know. Speaking of, so you mentioned that was released around the time the Steam controller was released. And for those who don't know, Steam also released their own gaming controller that was meant to kind of bridge the gap between PC games that use a keyboard and mouse and games that are really designed for a controller. Because let's say you're trying to play something like Civilization or Total War, or some game that's a strategy game that is in no way, shape, or form designed to be played with a controller and is keyboard and mouse only. The Steam controller was meant to allow you to at least attempt to play those games with a controller, or any game with a controller.
Right.
And it had a very funky design. I got a picture of it right here, actually, next to the Steam Deck. It was these touch pads that it had, as opposed to having analog sticks, although it does look like it still has one analog stick on it. I've never tried it, but I was always curious about it. I've seen it at pawn shops for, I don't know, 30, 40, 50 bucks, and it just... my curiosity wasn't strong enough to pick it up. And when they were discounting the Steam links and giving those away for $5, I think you mentioned that these controllers were heavily discounted as well around that time. So
yeah, they were different, but I think as far as controllers were at that time, and even controllers are at this time, there are way better options.
Yeah, agreed. So according to this article, Valve has mentioned that there is a possibility of a second version of the Steam controller. They're tossing around the idea of revisiting that and maybe improving on it and releasing another controller, either by themselves or with a partnership with a third-party company. Doesn't sound like anything's really been heavily worked on, so it remains to be seen if anything actually comes of this.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess with Steam right now, everybody's using another controller right now. And I can't think of anybody who still probably has their Steam controller as their main device for Steam at the moment.
Yeah, I highly doubt it. And I'm sure Valve, at the time of releasing that controller, they collect a lot of statistics and analytics from the people who use Steam. So I'm sure they could easily see the numbers of how many people are actually using a Steam controller versus, say, an Xbox controller or a PlayStation controller or some other third-party controller. Yeah, they probably saw the numbers were next to nothing, and that played a factor in them deciding to discontinue it.
Yep.
All right, so we talked a lot about remote play, and that got us thinking about just traveling and playing video games. I can remember going on vacation as a kid and lugging whatever console I had at the time with me, whether it was PlayStation 1, Nintendo 64, Xbox. Even if I never ended up plugging the thing up, I was like, maybe I might want to play this while I'm at the beach.
I do remember you in Gulf Shores lugging your Nintendo 64 with you and watching you play Majora's Mask for a while.
Yep, I remember that. So there are those instances where you want to travel and play games, and maybe you want something more than just a handheld console. We are bridging that gap now with stuff like the Steam Deck, which is very powerful. Even the Switch with its dock, so you could take one of these smaller form factor consoles and then plug it up to whatever TV is at wherever you're vacationing or visiting. But back in the day, 10, 15, 20 years ago, that wasn't so much of a luxury. Yeah, you had Game Boys and stuff, but maybe you just had to lug your Xbox with you, your massive original Xbox or your heavy Xbox 360.
That was me. That was 100% me in the Chicago airport going to Seattle to visit some family. I wanted my 360. I mean, I didn't. You want the console game, like you said. We have Game Boys and whatnot, but I want my console. I want my Xbox Live at that point. So I'm gonna be bored at my stepdad's family's doing nothing, having to, sit around at a house. So I'm like, I'm bringing the 360. So I need a case for the 360, and my parents were fortunate enough to take me to GameStop at the time, and we found this Gears of War console crate. And this thing was the coolest thing I think I've ever owned as far as carrying any of my consoles anywhere. It had the Gears of War logo. It was a metal crate. It just looked amazing. And except the fact that it was incredibly heavy. It was so heavy. And so lugging it around an airport was probably not the wisest idea. I think I had to change hands like every 5 minutes because I couldn't feel my my arm anymore. And on top of that, I'm this, I don't know how old I was, 15-year-old kid, 12-year-old kid with this big metal crate with the Gears of War logo on it. I look like I'm carrying a bomb. I mean, let's be real here. It did not look like I was carrying just a simple Xbox 360. But that was probably the coolest things I owned. I wish I still had it.
What happened to it?
That's a great question. I don't really know now that I think about it. I think it got pretty beat up, and like the insides were the quality of the actual inside where you put all your console stuff in was not great.
So did it have like foam pads or something that were actually designed to hold the 360 specifically?
Yes, it would separate where you should put the console, where you should put your controllers and the cords.
Wow,
So
that's cool.
it was pretty top notch.
Yeah, I'm looking at the pictures now, and I mean, I get why it's heavy because it looks like it's made out of metal, or at least partially metal, but it looks high quality and durable.
Yeah, it was definitely durable and high quality. I had to I lugged that thing around and had to throw it stow it away up top, and I'm sure it bounced around like crazy on that plane, and it came out the other side doing just fine.
Yeah, I haven't looked at a whole bunch of eBay listings, but just this one I have pulled up. For a brand new one, still in the packaging, it's going for $160. Do you remember how much this thing cost brand new when you bought it at the store when it first came out?
I want to say probably a third of that, like $50.
That sounds more realistic. Not only are they trying to sell this for $160 new, but the shipping is $80.45. So if you didn't already tell me this thing was heavy, now I know it is definitely heavy.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, now I'm just mad I don't know where that is or what happened to it. I'm sure my mom just threw it out after I stopped using it for a while, and same old with the parents and stuff that you don't touch anymore, right?
Right. Man, this thing is cool looking though, and I mean we all love Gears on the Xbox 360. So, reading the description, it says it's made by Mad Catz, which we've talked about before on the podcast. And for those who don't know, Mad Catz is no longer in existence, but it was a company that was one of the biggest third-party accessory companies for video game consoles. So they would make third-party controllers, memory cards, back when that was a thing, screens, carrying cases, just every accessory for a console you can think of, Mad Catz was producing that. And it was definitely a varying quality. Sometimes they were pretty cool and great, and sometimes they were just cheap trash, especially some of the controllers they made and the memory cards. Rest in peace, Mad Catz, though. Even though your stuff was hit or miss, that is definitely a part of my childhood I will never forget. You'd always come across somebody who had a Mad Catz controller, a memory card, or something, or you'd be at the store and you need another controller. It's too expensive. There's that Mad Catz controller, $20 cheaper. Just get that one, even though you'll regret it later. But
they were trying to help you when you needed help, when you just didn't. You were scavenging for money as a young kid. They were trying to help.
Yeah, absolutely. And it looks like when they released this, they also released some custom faceplates for the original Xbox 360. So the Xbox 360 had several different variations over time, over its lifespan. The original model of the Xbox 360, the front of the console, you could remove it and replace it with custom ones that either had graphics from games on it or whatever it was, different colors. It was a very cool idea, and the PlayStation 5 kind of has that now where you can replace the side plates with different colored ones, but it's very toned down. Back in the Xbox 360 era, I mean, these graphics were all over the place. Some were cheesy, some were cool, some were just really stood out. So these faceplates are pretty cool looking that you could add to the original console.
It really shows that the Xbox 360 was one of the best consoles of all time. I mean, they had so much to that console that, even the smallest things like the faceplates, where it was just a fantastic console.
Yeah, it had a lot of personality, and options to customize it. And then down here, they even have not only the faceplate, but side panels with Marcus Phoenix and Dom that you can put on each side of it. So you could completely cover your Xbox 360 in these cool Gears of War graphics. Unfortunately, when they changed the Xbox 360 to the later models, they stopped doing the removable faceplate.
And I hate the way those later models look compared to what the originals looked like.
Yes, the original, even though it has all the hardware failure problems, it was the coolest looking one out of all of them. And I think just consoles now are moving more towards kind of generic looks. Like even the Xbox One just looked like a black box, and the Xbox Series X, it's still just a black box. It's just
there's no room for personality with any of your consoles anymore. I feel like that's what 360 thrived with. You could add your own personality to your console itself. Not only like when you're playing games and your Xbox profile that they had a ton of customization for too, but even just your physical box when you're hauling over to your friend's house, pull that baby out. Yeah, look what I got on my console now.
Yeah. And I remember for my PlayStation 2, I had bought these sticker decals. That there was some company, I don't remember the name of it, but it made decals that were specifically designed to be put on your game console, whether it be GameCube, PlayStation 2, or the original Xbox, because that was around the time that these were released. I'd gotten a Devil May Cry one that had this really cool sticker that you could put on top of your PlayStation 2, and it had smaller stickers to put in the little individual grooves. I loved it.
That's awesome.
And then one day when I went to trade in my PlayStation 2 to EB Games in the mall, which they're no longer there, EB Games got bought out by GameStop, and then they're long gone. There was this really mean lady working there that had an attitude, and I brought my PlayStation 2 in to trade it in, and she's like, "We can't accept that." I'm like, "What, you guys don't do trade-ins on PlayStation 2s?" And she's like, "We do, but we can't accept that." And I'm like, "Why?" She's like, "Because of those stickers on it." And then I'm like, "Oh, just buy it and let me trade it in and then just remove the stickers." She's like, "We can't do it. We don't remove the stickers." I'm like, "Are you serious?" So she made a huge deal about it. So I sat there, peeled the sticker off right in front of her, and I'm like, "There, now will you trade it in?" She's like, "Yes, we'll take it now." I'm like, man, this lady, she must be having a bad day. Either that or she just always had an attitude. I don't know. Might have been her personality.
It must, because I remember like GameStop's, like a lot of the GameStop employees, I mean, even EB Games growing up, like they were always like acting like your buddy, you know? They were trying to sell you stuff.
Yeah, it's so weird to go in there and just have somebody who just seemed like they hated their job and hated being there. Anyway, I mean, I think GameStop employees nowadays hate their job. But back then, I don't think it was as bad as a gig as it is today.
No, being a GameStop employee back then was cool. Like, that was like an awesome job to have.
Yeah.
Nowadays, I mean, they're barely functioning as a company.
Yeah. Anyway, on a less depressing note, well, maybe depending on how you view it, while we were looking for this crate, we stumbled across an eBay listing for a Gears of War 2 limited edition Xbox 360 console. And it is very cool looking. Now, let's keep a few things in mind. This is the original version of the Xbox 360, so it is prone to hardware failure. So you have to be careful when buying these old ones. And the other thing is this is selling right now for $2,000. Excuse me, it's selling for 2,000 pounds, which translated to US dollars is roughly $2,400. So the story behind this is that allegedly there's only 20 of these in the world. So it is one of the rarest limited edition Xbox 360 consoles. Now, I do know that limited edition consoles can fetch a big price, especially if they're released in limited quantities. And the only way to obtain one of these, according to this description, is, let's see here. The only way you could own one of these ultra rare game consoles was to win one by participating in competitions that Microsoft and Epic Games jointly held in 20 major city locations around the world in 2008 to celebrate the release of Epic Games' Gears of War 2. So yeah, this thing is hard to come by, and again, it is really cool looking. But,
yeah, it's a great looking console.
Yeah, but is it worth $2,400?
Not to me.
Not to me either, especially knowing that it's the original Xbox 360, and this, if it still works, is going to red ring on you at some point.
Yeah, do we think anybody would still repair that? Say we call up Microsoft support. Can you fix my red ring of death on my 360?
And I'd be like, you better not scratch this console while repairing it, because I just paid $2,400 for it.
You'll probably send it to them, and they'll send you back a completely different console. It'll just be a standard white one.
Yeah, we just replace them now. We don't actually repair them. I'd be like, you need to send me that old one back. Do not. We already threw it in the trash. Sorry, we sent you this brand new one. We thought you'd want that one more. That is hilarious. That'd be like the worst case scenario.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I'd like to find out if this actually sells. There are collectors out there that are richer than I am and crazier than I am that are willing to drop much more money than I am for limited edition video game memorabilia.
Yeah, 81 people watching it right now. So.
Oh, okay. So there's definitely some interest in it. All right, come on. We just need one of those 81 people to pull the trigger and buy this thing.
Yeah, if they do, we will report back.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, man. Well, I think that about wraps up our episode. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in, and thank you extra if you made it to the end. Mitch, do you want to let everybody know about all our social media platforms and where we can be reached at?
Absolutely. You can find all of our podcast episodes on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. You can follow us on our social media accounts. Our Twitter is @HillsAreSilent. Our Instagram is Instagram.com/HillsAreSilent. YouTube is @TheHillsAreSilent. And if you have any questions or comments, you can send them to our email inbox at hillsaresilent@gmail.com. We'll catch you on the next episode.